Hi, going to do a little video on sharpening chisels and plane blades. Going to cover some basics. Also, I will talk about what I use and why I made those decisions. And we're going to talk about repeatability. Some people freehand, but I'm not going to try freehand. I use a guide. The guide lets you do the exact same angle, so when you're taking a little metal away, it's the same as what is actually on the blade, which will save you a lot of time. If I have to reshape the angle of a blade or take out a large nick, I'll use sandpaper on a stone. I could go from 120 to 220. It'll be a lot quicker than trying to use a diamond stone. I actually use water to stick it to an engineering stone. Once in a while I put a little piece of tape on it, and it works very well. The Scary Sharp system, you could use a piece of float glass. When I first started, I bought a piece of marble at Home Depot, and it was pretty flat and it worked very well. You could, all you really have to go up to is 2500 grit on sandpaper and you will be very sharp. You could buy stuff up to a half a micron, which is about 30,000 if you really want to get fine. Different type of stones are whetstones, diamond stones, and ceramic stones, which are a type of whetstone. Stropping on leather would give you a final polish. For a long time I used a diamond stone, a water stone of 6,000, and a leather strop with honing compound, and it did very well. I got very sharp. It's about a $125 investment. In the long run, it's cheaper than replacing your sandpaper, unless you almost never have to sharpen. Then the Scary Sharp system is a good way to go. My current sharpening system is my diamond stone, which goes up to 1200, 300 on the other side, which is used for flattening. My ceramic stones, a 4000 and 16,000 ceramic. I like the ceramic because you do not have to soak them. A water stone you have to soak for 5 minutes before use. When your chisels get dull and you want to go over and touch them up, the waste of that 5 minutes I did not like. So the ceramic stones, all you have to do is spray them with a little water and work on them. They do not need to be soaked. The bevels that I use are a primary, a micro, and a back bevel. The back bevel is only used on plane blades. You can never use a back bevel on a chisel blade. My primary bevel, I do to 25 degrees on most of my chisels. You could go down, if it's only going to be used for paring, you could go down as low as 20 degrees, but the edge will not last long if you kind of tap it with a mallet. If I'm doing my mortise chisels, then I will go up to a 30 degree or higher angle because they're pounding on those pretty hard. But on most chisels, it's a 25 degree angle. Then I step up my back bevel, my micro bevel, 2 degrees to about 27 degrees. That means that when I have to touch up my sharpening on the chisel, all I have to work is that small little micro bevel instead of taking off metal from the whole primary, which would be a lot of work and time. And the back bevel is only used when you are doing a plane blade. That way you do not have to polish the back of the plane blade. On a chisel, you have to give the back of the blade a very fine polish. A sharp edge is between two polished edges. The back bevel on a chisel, if you were pairing with it, it would not work right. The bottom of the chisel is kind of like the bottom of a plane. It needs to be perfectly flat. The other thing that has to be perfectly flat is your water stones or ceramic stones. So I usually take the 300 grit side of my diamond stone, which is perfectly flat, and use that to flatten. The ceramic stones, you could get away in doing it every other or third time. A basic water stone, you have to do it every time you sharpen. Diamond plates, you don't have to do that at all. But on the higher grits, I feel I get a much better polish with a water stone than a diamond stone. DMT does make a 8,000 grit stone, but you're not going to get the same polish off of that as an 8,000 grit water stone. So you flatten it back till you see no more spots and little dips that have wearing in it. And once you have a perfectly flat surface, then you can get a perfectly sharp blade. Once again, you cannot put a back bevel on the chisel, so you must polish the back to a very high polish. The more money you spend on that chisel, the less work you have to do to create this polish. And then when you hone your micro bevel to that polish, you got a very sharp blade. This is an Eclipse style honing guide. It's only about $15. It works very well. When you first buy it, it needs a little bit of a tune-up. When you tighten on it, the center will raise up and things might not sit square. So you have to take a file and kind of file down right on the edges there, and sometimes you have to do a little work on the bottom side or lower level where the chisel goes. The plane blades will go on the top, and those little notches in the bottom is where it will clamp onto a chisel. Mine, I had to take a file and smooth those out a bit. This is the Veritas honing guide, which I own. The deluxe kit is about $125. It gives you a side clamping clamp, a top clamping clamp for your plane blades. You get a cambered roller, which I don't use. You can see that it's very shiny. And you get a registration guide to keep your chisels at the same angle every time you go back to sharpening, which is very critical because otherwise you would be taking a lot of metal off every time you went back to touch something up. If the blade's at the same angle, it's very quick and easy. A registration guide for the Eclipse style you can make out of wood. And if your angles happen to be a little bit off and they're not exactly 25 or 30, if they're off 1 or 2 degrees, it really doesn't matter. The important thing is that you go back to the exact same angle every time you sharpen. The Veritas registration guide slides on to the unit. You can see on the back, it also keeps the chisel square and the same distance out to create the same angle. On the top clamping guide, though, you have to be careful that you tighten the knobs with equal pressure. You do a little on one side, a little on the other. Otherwise, that blade could skew as you're working on it. You could get down to a 1/2-inch chisel with this top clamping, but anything smaller than that, you might have a problem keeping it tight. The side clamping guide will hold your chisel squarely without it ever skewing, and you could go down to an 1/8-inch chisel. There's a little $9 adapter that will raise that up so you can get your thick mortise chisels in there, and it keeps the blade square, and which is very important. If you're using the Eclipse style jig, to get your 27-degree angle to give you the 2-degree micro bevel, you insert a 1/8 inch piece of wood and adjust to that, and you would end up with your 27 degrees. As you hone your little micro bevel, you only hone it to maybe a 1/16, 1/8 of an inch is fine, a 1/16 of an inch, and you're good to go. If you're using the Veritas, you have a little knob at the 12 o'clock position is your normal position. You could bring it down to 3 o'clock for a 1-degree change or 6 o'clock for a 2-degree change. I go to 6 o'clock, it gives me a 2-degree addition, so I'm at 27 degrees to get my micro bevel. If you've used the Eclipse guide to get a 2-degree back bevel on your plane, there's a trick called the David Charlesworth ruler trick. You can see a lot about this on Lee Nielsen's site. The ruler should be, I believe it's a 1/2 millimeter thick, and you kind of just rub it back and forth. and it'll put about a 2-degree back bevel on. I don't use it. I find that the ruler slips a lot. That's why I like the Veritas. The Veritas also has settings for back bevels on plane blades of 10, 15, 20. You could actually set anything you like. And they help when you're planing figured wood. You could change the effective angle of your plane blade with a 1/32 little back bevel that when you're done with that, you could just hone that off your micro bevel and you're back to your standard blade. To adjust the scale for your back bevel, it's on the green scale. You have to move the adjuster knob and put the setting on the green, and then you're reading the green side. To do less of a 10-degree back bevel, you have to add a spacer block, and you could go down as far as a 2-degree, and that is the back bevel that I use on my standard plane blades. A chart is given to you showing you the offset that you need from the top of your stone to where the wheel is. To use the offset, you must put the cam roller into the 6 o'clock position. You create a spacer. This one is 13/16 different from the stone to the wood. This is giving me my 2-degree back bevel. It is very consistent and accurate.